Hi, this is Dr. Gill from Pulsar Health, and I'm joined by Coach C of the Contrast Results Group in Toronto, Canada. We are doing the second of our webinars on emotional health as part of the Beauty Built on Health series. Today we are going to dive into detail on how to deal with some of the consequences of Corona in terms of the change in our workforce. Many people have had a hit in terms of their revenues coming in, so there's financial stresses. Other businesses have had difficulty with greater demand, such as many of the internet-based businesses or cleaning businesses, and trying to adjust their employment status and how many people they're hiring, holding on to hires. There's other stresses as part of this change, and people are not meeting other people as often, or if they are, they're afraid of having to go into quarantine due to exposure. So there's a lot of stresses that people are facing that they haven't necessarily had to deal with on such a wide, persistent, ongoing level in the past. And we want to talk about some of those stresses and also some strategies in order to deal with them that may be able to help you weather these times and actually come out of this much stronger. So I'm going to go over to Coach C to get her insight on what's been going on.
Thanks so much, Monica. I really appreciate the introduction, and this topic specifically, I'm very passionate about. I have seen in the last several weeks the amount of anxiety, stress placed on people through whether it's a financial pressure, just erratic fear over, exposure to the coronavirus, or over pivoting from school, or they don't have maybe the outlets that they had before, or that connectivity. We talk about relationships and who are we connecting to? Well, if you're in isolation, or you're in quarantine, or you're going to school all day online, that has massive impact on your emotional and your mental well-being. And it's not, the interesting thing about that is it's not defined by age. So we're seeing this all across the board, from the youngest of kids to university students, high school students, entrepreneurs, senior level leaders, workers, frontline staff. It's impacting everyone. So I think it's a really appropriate topic to deal with. What are some strategies that people can talk about and work with in terms of, one, how to stay connected, but two, what are they really dealing with, and really kind of unpeeling what those stresses are versus, oh, I feel stressed out. Well, I feel stressed out doesn't give you access to anything. What's really causing that? And what are some things that we can do? And what are some strategies that people can take away from today? I think will be really helpful.
That's awesome. And so, and in peeling back what you're stressed about, I think that that is like the entry into figuring out what to do. So, for example, let's pick three things that people might be stressed about, and we can dive more into those. So, one would be finances, whether you're employed and you're not sure, or whether you're employed but you now have a lot of extra to do that you never had to do before, or you're the employer and you're trying to hold on to your team or create a new team. So I think the job side of things. The second stress that I think many people are facing, which we can talk about, is sort of a situation with not knowing whether to quarantine or not quarantine, who to get exposed to. Like, I just recently did a 2-week self-quarantine. I was negative for Corona with 2 tests, but I still didn't want to, and I only found out during the quarantine, but I didn't want to risk the people who I might have been exposed to, so or who would see me. So trying to figure out the best way to deal with those kind of stresses. And another stress, I just wanted to give one more stress, let's see, in terms of like this whole sort of like theory that you're not accomplishing things, like everything's kind of falling apart with the country, and everything's kind of falling apart with home life, and like you're not making your usual level of progress, and things are just like not under control.
Let's start with that one. I have a lot of people say to me, I feel like I am failing at everything. failing at, especially for women, failing at being a mom, homeschooling my children while keeping my corporate job and trying to perform and do the functions that I normally would do, and make sure that things are running well. So people are having an experience of, they feel like they're having this failure of things, and that's a huge challenge, and it really is very impactful during this time, because we're not used to the not being able to get things done in the same amount of time with a limited number of resources. So I think it's important to unpack that, because when people say, I feel like I'm failing at everything, I promise you, you're not. There are definitely things you are winning at every day, and it's the conversation you're having with yourself. And maybe the baby didn't get out of their pajamas today. Maybe the teenager went to school and they didn't have a shower and their hair was all over the place. It's, certain things like your standards of excellence, maybe that's what needs to shift. And being okay with that's okay, right?
Yeah. I think that's a great point as to what your measures are. Like, how are you measuring success and failure? I was just talking to a nurse who visited here who has a concierge home health agency, and she was talking about how she used to work 14-hour days. She was the vice president of operations for a hospital, as well as being a nurse herself for many, many years. And she found that she was like, I told my husband, I've got 1 hour for dinner, and then I've got to go back and prepare the report. And then her mom got sick, and she stopped working. And for 6 months to help her mom with breast cancer, and her mom recovered. And then when she was due to go back to work, she was like, that's not the life I want, and I'm not doing it. And so then she started her own business, and now is 2 years down the road, has her own employees, and she has freedom. And so my purpose is to support people in having a life worth living. And so how do you define a life worth living? And maybe that internal guide is what needs to define success and failure, rather than an external parameter of you're making X amount of income, you have your kids making at least B grades. It's like, how do you define success? Like, how do you define?
Yeah, and I think we really need to reevaluate that, because it's a personal phenomenon. And what we do is we look externally for, this must be our vision of success. If we have this and it looks like that, then we're successful. Or we inherited a lot of that viewpoint from our families and where we grew up in those economic periods, or what we had in the past. Your life today and what defines who you are today is what you say it is. And if you're saying it's something that isn't attainable, then you're setting yourself up for failure every single day. So watching that in invisible bar, and those shoulds, as we call it, I should be able to do this, and I should accomplish that, and I should be able to get more done in the day and do all of these other things. And that's, you're setting yourself up to fail, but who are you doing that to? Because no one is doing that to us. We're doing that to ourselves. We're putting that pressure on ourselves to, be the perfect, whatever the perfect is, the perfect executive, the perfect doctor, the perfect practice, the perfect entrepreneur, the perfect CEO. There is no such thing. So I think we need to readjust those things based on where we are now, and not paradigms from the past or things that we inherited. So that's, I think, the first tool that you want to start to look at is, where did I get that idea? Mm-hmm. And also building in and setting goals that are attainable, that make sense.
Yeah, that's huge.
So if you have a goal to work out 3 times a week, that's an attainable goal. If you have a goal to work out 7 times a week, but your calendar is structured in a way that you can't even figure out 20 minutes to eat lunch, that's not an attainable goal. So you have to look at what's really going on and what are you committed to, and make sure you prioritize the things that you're committed to.
Yeah, that's the difference between setting yourself up for failure versus setting yourself up for success. And so it's, are you cheating yourself by like having ridiculous goals?
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I have done recently is I was given an assignment to create my perfect day. And I didn't create my perfect day, I created my perfect month.
Of course. One day's not good enough. I got to do the whole 30.
Exactly. Well, 1 week of the month, I'm not doing that. I'm like traveling. So you see, it's like, it had to be different. And then weekdays are different from weekends. So what I got from the exercise was I put in the things that I find that I enjoy doing, and that all the categories are covered of what I want in my life, even like having a dog and cats and things. So it's like I have this part of the day that I sit down and I write with my dog there, and so I have that outlined as what I consider success, as what I consider an internal barometer of success. And the day is sectioned, and with the different sections, some of them require money, like a personal chef, and some of them don't, like enjoying the dawn breeze. And so it's like, which segments of that perfect day can I start living now, and which segments can, like, I'm building towards. And so it's like, when you define success, it's about having a very clear vision of exactly what that will look like, how you fit that in. Not that I'm super fit and I haven't slotted in exercise anywhere, but like in my perfect day, I go to the dojo or the yoga studio in the evenings and we have fun, you know, and I have a movie night in my perfect week and a games night. And so those are things that I can start putting in now, and they're stuff that I enjoy living this life. It's not that I'm going to get there someday. It's today is the day. This is my life now. And so one of my things was to connect. And now I'm connecting with Coach C. And so I'm living my perfect moment right now.
Right?
So it's about having what you define as success or failure. Like, how do you judge yourself, Christine?
Oh, harshly. I'm so hard on myself. One of the things that I recently stopped doing is working all weekend. So during COVID, things got really crazy in my business, and I would work 14-hour days and, really be there for my clients. And I was really diving in, and I hit this magnificent wall where I was basically feeling like a zombie in a basket case. And I wasn't nearly as productive and effective because I was catching up on my personal business on the weekends and doing all of the things for the company that needed to get done, like attend to the marketing and attend to the accounting and attend to this and attend to that, while managing 3 kids with very, very different high priority needs. And so probably in about August, I just went, whoa, and I stopped. And I reevaluated, what are the things that make me happy? What are the things that are the most important to me? So maybe those contracts and those big things that I expected to land this year don't get done until next year. Is that the end of the world? No. The other piece of it was spending time with my family outside, whether it's warm or cold. So I live in Toronto and I hate the cold weather. Not all Canadians like cold weather. So I want to trade places with you, Monica, because I don't like cold weather, but I happen to be married to someone whose job is on Bay Street, and that's just, we have to live here. So what I promised to myself is have really fabulous hats and mitts and scarves and lots of layers, so that when I go outside and I'm walking the puppies, we got a new dog over the summer, a new puppy. So I started making time for the things that fill me up and fill up my cup. And the interesting thing was, working 7 days and grinding it out wasn't nearly as impactful as how I've been impactful now. I can get a lot more done because I'm more focused, I'm more clear. I say no to more things now. I don't always say yes. I prioritize in my calendar, and there's things like you said, you schedule certain things out. That has to happen. Also, let's talk about structures for fulfillment, because you mentioned something that's really important. And this is for everyone. If you are finding yourself working more and not having the time, it's okay to have things like a housekeeper to do the laundry, or to clean things, or to have that personal chef, or to have your meals delivered. Maybe you're supporting a local restaurant by having meals delivered to your house, or so that you don't have to. maybe you can, if you're a mom and you have to make lunches in the morning and you get everybody out the door, but you start your work at 8 o'clock and the kids go to school at 8:30, 9 o'clock, how are you balancing those things and what requests can you make? So that's a big deal. Sorry, you're hearing one of our dogs barking in the background. So online tutoring was another one. So I'm running a company. I can't tutor my kids from home. So I had to hire in that help. So if I'm hiring help to support the family, that means that I have to look at my employees for the company. So it may slow my growth in my company during this particular phase, knowing it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Does that make sense? So really prioritizing what are the things that are really important and what won't I let drop off the table.
Yeah, I read this book recently called The One Thing by Gary Keller, who of Character Realty, and he talks about in your projects focusing, like priority used to be a single word, not a plural. That says it all. Now it's like
T.
So in that time slot that you've allotted for that that period where you've got a project, it's okay to have just one project and see it through to the end, and then you've accomplished one thing rather than fail at multiple things. It's better to have sequential like successes and start with what's most important and know that at least you've got the most. It's like the is it Pareto's principle that 80% of the result is from 20%. So make sure you find that 20% every day. Ask yourself, what is the one thing that's going to bring the most in through the door, or what I'm going to get the most bang from, and then rather than spread your time out, focus on that one thing. Which is exactly what Christine was talking about in terms of getting more efficiency and results right now.
And I think if you know what those priorities are and you're focused on those things, you start to lose the expectations, which creates high levels of stress. So if you have 10 things on your plate and you're juggling them all and you know something's going to drop off the plate, knowing that something's going to drop off the plate just elevates your stress because you feel like, I'm failing at life. I'm failing at all things. Well, no, you failed at that one thing because there was no possible way you were going to get it all done anyway. And so I think it's important, if we're looking at managing our wellness and managing our health and our anxiety levels, which are through the roof right now, we really want to figure out what's really important and let go of things that are not important and that don't serve us. And be focused on that so that you feel like you're winning and you take a moment to acknowledge the growth that you've taken, the strides that you've taken, as opposed to looking at things that you're failing and I didn't get this done and I didn't get that done. There are only so many hours in a day and you will get done what you get done that day.
Yeah, like that documentary, Last Dance, with Michael Jordan. He focused on his game, and that was it. He didn't do a million other things. He focused on the game, and so he's. It's about when you're choosing, make sure you choose what you really want and what it means the most to you, so that you get the best results. And another thing that Michael Jordan exemplifies is that the best players in the world, it's not just about the game, it's about the recovery time. So he didn't like hang out in the hotel rooms with his mates. He took time to eat well, to sleep, because and this book by the guy who has the vegan protein shakes, I can't remember his name right now, but he wrote about how the difference between the best athletes in the world isn't the training, it's the recovery. So not having that recovery in there is cheating yourself of that high level of performance that can get you the results that you want quicker and more efficiently and effectively.
Well, and you bring me to why I launched one of the programs, BrainTap Coach, this last month. When we first started talking, I had shared with you that I launched a program because it is about the reset. It is about revitalizing, recovering, and rebooting. And that's a daily phenomenon because your brain operates at theta, gamma, delta, and all these beta waves and alpha waves. Most of us are stuck in alpha. And it means that we're not getting that recovery processor for our brain. So when we do go to focus on things, we can't access our focus. We're confused or we're distracted, or it's like, what was I doing again? So that also impacts our decision-making abilities. So if we're not resetting and revitalizing and taking that recovery time, then we are not operating at peak brain performance. and your brain is already so inundated with stress levels that if we don't do those things and take that time to reset, it's very damaging, and it's very difficult to recover from those things.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that program, and do you teach it to your coachees?
It's actually an app. So it's an app on your phone, and it's called BrainTap Coach. And I'll pull it up. We weren't intending to have this conversation, and this isn't a plug, but this is what I have found. You'll see the, where are we? There we go. A little bit of light. So there's the BrainTap, and then BrainTap Coach Bundle is about, really creating, that's the bundle on the bottom. And that's about creating, what's your vision? How do you, manage and stay clear, in line with your vision, setting goals that are realistic, that reduce, stress, understanding your numbers. We talked about like financials, understanding your business numbers. Well, understanding your life numbers are just as important. All of those programs are in the BrainTap Coach. So it's like having a coach in your pocket, and it hits you at a subconscious level, because that's the reboot where you take the time to reset and relax, and you rewire some of that thinking that is getting in our way.
So how would people use the app? Like, is there like a setup period where they'd have to input a bunch of data and then it reminds you of things, or like how does it work?
No, you actually use the app before you fall asleep at night, and it's perfectly okay to fall asleep. So a lot of my clients, one of the reasons I work with BrainTap Tech is because a lot of my clients have a very racy mind. A lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders, they never turn it off, right? Like they lie in bed at night and they're like, oh yeah, and that one other thing, and right? And you'll say, they'll say, well, I'm not sleeping well. Well, why aren't you sleeping well? Because they can't get it to turn off. And so you can really listen to, there's, the BrainTap technology has 4 different components to it. So it's isochronic tones, binaural beats, light wave technology is in the headset, which is actually here on my desk. This is the BrainTap. This isn't supposed to be an infomercial, but this is a little BrainTap. You put it on here, okay? So that light technology is extremely healthy. You know how important light technology is as well. So, and then guided visualization. So you're helping to rewire your thinking, your neurons, the plasticity, all of those things, and create a meditative reset and restful space, which really helps you recover, gets your brain kind of more in balance so that you have focus, that your memory is clearer. I started using this because I had a really bad concussion. And it was very hard for me to recover from my concussion. I was losing words and memory. And that concussion happened about 2.5 years ago. And this has helped me with that mental clarity, the focus. I don't lose my words quite as quickly as I used to. Being in the speaking industry and losing your words is a bit of an on-the-job hazard. So I just include it. But yeah, I've had 5 concussions, and I was playing hockey, and the last one really, concussions are kind of they build the effect, as you know. And so that last concussion had a lot of different implications, and this has really helped my recovery from that. But I can go to sleep at night. I wake up in the morning so vitalized, so revitalized, energized, ready to go, creative in my thought process. I often do it in the morning as well. So twice a day before bed, falling asleep, waking up. If I'm tired, instead of about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you want a coffee. It's like, I'm tired, so you reach for coffee. You can do 10-minute BrainTap. And it's really helping you to get into that recovery, because it's about recovery.
That's great, because I think a lot of people find it hard to meditate, to switch off, especially when their brain is racing. So having some input coming in that sort of replaces the thoughts and makes it easier to get into that meditative state, I think would be very helpful. I'll have to look into that. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. It's really awesome. We weren't even going to talk about that today, but
yeah, it's a great tool. We're here to give people tools. So I think we've looked a lot at the third option, which is the feeling of failure. I think now one last thing to add to that before I move on to the other two, because we're running low on time, is I did create, instead of like a vision board, I created an accomplishments list, which I found has been helpful. I've been using it for the last couple of weeks. And the accomplishments list is not like, it's better because I don't get a feeling of lack. I get a feeling of, whoa, I'm that good already, Yeah. And it's associated associated with a characteristic, and then with examples of where I've had wins associated with that characteristic. And so it's different from a vision board, because it's not about something that you want that you don't have. It's about your successes that you have already proven, and the basis of you ongoingly being amazing. You know, if you're, it's a way to create security and trust in who you are in a world that's become very volatile and very insecure. So I know you talked about some habits that you have too, Christine.
Yeah, we do acknowledgement practices. So accomplishment and acknowledgement are two practices that we do, I do them daily. I also add gratitude to everything. So, you know, when I look at what have I accomplished this month, what have I accomplished this year, what have I created? I also create a gratitude list for having the ability to accomplish and acknowledge those things in my life. Daily in our company, we start our day. We have a 9 a.m. It used to be earlier, but now that the kids, I have to manage the kids a little bit, but we have a 9 a.m. call, and it's a 30-minute call, and we don't talk about business. We don't talk about any of the strategic things or the tactical things in business. We literally set our intention for the day. And what are we grateful for? We start with intention, gratitude, and then what is our commitment? Like, what will we accomplish? In the beginning of the day, what will we have said we've already accomplished at the end of the day? So you're already standing in your accomplishment. And it really shifts who you're being with confidence and alacrity. And it could be a simple thing like, I'm going to take on this day with courage. I'm going to take on this day with alacrity and fluidity. So knowing that you might have to navigate some bumpy things, you might have to have tough conversations, or there might be some uncertainty. When you set an intention for your day and you stay inside of the intention, there's a lot of ways you can execute on it. Mm-hmm. So it's really important, I think, to stand there and to really be purposeful in your day.
And that gives you much more of a sense of control. I love that you do that as a team. For people who don't have a team, Hugh Hilton did recommend something called the 5-minute journal, which I have been using, and it's great. So thank you, Mr. Hilton. That was wonderful.
My 5-minute journal is around here somewhere. Yeah. So this is a 5-minute journal, right? I don't actually write in my 5-minute journal. I have a funny thing about writing and messing up books.
I actually wrote in mine. I am writing in mine.
I don't like
to be like that.
But what I do have is I record my thoughts, my emotions and my feelings, and I use Siri, or I put them in Rev and I transcribe that. And then at the end of the week, I read back to myself what that was.
That's right.
And if there's something that needs to be executed on, then we put it in a system for like a program that we have to execute on those ideas. Because sometimes your best thinking comes when you're just like doing that creative thinking and that creative writing process. But so I tend to speak out loud more than I do that writing activity. They're both very healthy practices though.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we're almost out of time, but I really want to hit, we're at the half hour mark. I really want to hit very briefly about the financial and the panic issues. So with the financial, maybe we'll put it off to another time because we're almost out of time. But I think a lot of the things that we covered will help with financial stresses. So let's just set the stage for next time to cover that, because it's an important topic and we don't want to jip it. So
no, I think it's important. I think the biggest thing, if you're feeling concerned and pressure and stress around finances, transparency and clarity. So that is the time where you write out and you know what's really so, because we live in fear of the unknown. Well, if you don't know where you are financially, then you don't have access to taking any actions. So I think that's the biggest tip we can leave you with today in a snapshot, and then we'll maybe dive into it next time a little bit more deeply.
Yep, that's it. Thank you so much. There's some amazing ideas there and practices. So thank you. It's been phenomenal, and we look forward to catching up with you. I hope you guys are getting a lot out of it. If you have any questions, please feel free to call us or email us. My email is info@pulsarhealth.com, and Coach C's email is
Christine@contrastconsultingco.com.
So cool. Feel free to reach out to us. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.